Good morning, bienvenue, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I wanted to welcome you to the very first panel of the Keep It On Summit, which is a special insider track at RightsCon Brussels. Over the course of the next few days, we'll explore different facets of internet shutdowns with the world's leading experts. Many of you are sitting right here in the room today, and we encourage you to participate, ask questions, get involved, disagree, come up with new ideas. That's the spirit of RightsCon, and we really welcome that. But to start us off, I'd like to lay a quick baseline to get us started. We don't need to argue over a definition of what an internet shutdown is. Exactly 1 year ago, a group of technologists, lawyers, and activists came up with a definition of internet shutdowns, and I'll read it here today. An internet shutdown of internet or electronic communications, rendering them inaccessible or effectively unusable for a specific population or within a location over the flow of information. The last part is really important. The definition could probably be improved, but the summit is not really meant to be a definitional exercise. We're here to move towards outcomes. We don't need to argue about whether shutdowns have occurred. They have. And an absolute in Africa, Asia, the Americas, and even Europe. They've occurred during elections, school exams, protests, and because of court judgments. We don't need to argue about whether violence thrives under internet shutdowns. This has been proven in numerous disruptions over the past years, during which peaceful protests leading to gross human rights violations. Two path-breaking studies from the Brookings dollars was drained from the economy last year. It's now a question of shutdowns last year and has grown to nearly 124 organizations from 51 countries. We don't need to argue about whether anything has changed. The UN Human Rights Council spoke out by unequivocally condemning internet shutdowns. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights has spoken out. The Global Network Initiative, which is a collection of companies, academics, investors, almost 40 countries. The funds raised by that product will go towards supporting digital rights around the world. But as you'll hear today, there's a lot that we don't know. These challenges range from detection to coordination, to implementation, to documentation, and circumvention. Fighting internet shutdowns is a moonshot problem, but there are multiple moons, and solutions depend on stakeholders lending their generosity, resources, and expertise to resolve the problem. To put this in perspective, there are 3 ongoing shutdowns right now in Pakistan, Bahrain, and Cameroon. We're going to try to address these challenges at the Keep It On Summit with the hope to leave on Friday with real solutions and commitments to action. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Anchor-Free and Siphon, who have generously supported the summit. And thank you to my colleagues Peter Misek, Gustav Bjorkston, and Anchi Lee program. With that, I'll turn to our panelists to discuss everything we know about internet shutdowns. There's plenty left to talk about. Thank you.
Deji. And I'm not supposed to introduce the panel. The panel director of the Citizen Lab, and I'm glad to be when the Open Net Initiative project, some of you might remember, was in the midst of just getting going, and we were putting together our first edited volume. Internet shutdowns were very likely to become to capture this idea that there may be around key moments in time of other reasons as well. It's not uncommon for the internet to it's not us. The number of these cases also on the without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to whoever on the identify themselves.
I don't mind going first. I also serve as a just fantastic initiative. People are saying that shutdowns is an example of an entire country industry when the shutdown happened. Is that every few months we're seeing more and more countries do shutdowns, including people for whom shutdowns perhaps would not seem to be the new normal. I'm an Indian by citizenship. I'm based in India most of the time. Some of you who were at RightsCon 2 years ago may remember there was a fantastic celebration because the Indian Supreme Day 2 happened. We timed it all. Citizens require strong, fantastic protection. Because one of the challenges people say is below the radar. There's not enough. In large federal democracies, not just India, but many others, sometimes they say, look, it's not the central government's fault, it's not the federal government's fault. State agencies, provincial authorities, local police, they're blocking it. They know what's better for law and order. Don't come and bug federal ministers on this. Initially takes responsibility for, but it might be we're going to issue a blocking state. Now the reality part of it has been generating discussion. And then it's going towards that's a cost we need to document, because very often the Minister for Security often public discussion around internet shutdowns, what is happening, the fact that the union government has to take responsibility. The position from the union governments has been that, no, police agencies across the country are shutting down the internet. It's not our fault. Although telecommunications is a constitutional subject which the center or the federal government should be in charge of. Unless people don't take you seriously. And that's one effort that the grab behind me called AIB. Imagine a show that comes on an Indian streaming platform for 1.2 million people writing shutdowns happening, and said, what can we do? The Internet Freedom Foundation and said, we want to make this issue mainstream. They cited to work from the Software Freedom Law Center. It's already 15. And it's generally even more mainstream issue. What we friend who's in the police services in India, what my colleagues are doing. They want to shut it down for anything. So this is self-organized, so who takes it next?
Great, thank you very much. Over to you, Julie.
Well, since I'm sitting right next to you, I'll just take the mic. Thank you. Speaking to respond to your question, I will sorry. From Internet Sans Frontières, so Keep It On Coalition. This is I'll take the work in the narrative elsewhere, especially in the global. When we are transitioning from commodity-based economies to digital ones, so they are very positive officially in their discourse about the digital world. But at the same time, they are shutting down the internet. Many of them. A country like Cameroon, for instance, is proud of itself, proud to say that it has a very vibrant tech community. But at the same time, it shut down to show, the count and contradictory I mean, this is totally contradictory to say that you want the digital economy, but you don't want, I mean, you want to shut down the internet whenever you feel like. So we've argued a lot on the economic aspect of the shutdown in Cameroon. It has already cost, up to the 60th day, it has cost $2.69 million. So it might seem nothing, but for a country like Cameroon, which is negotiating with the IMF, crisis crash of the past years, it has been in a huge crisis. Plus, we have Boko Haram, so we have to invest a lot on preventing terrorism to spread throughout the country. So obviously, economy is very, I mean, these are tough times economically. So when we argue that we are preventing people to create wealth, and it, to some extent, the discourse at least has opened the minds of those who were among the citizens who didn't see it as being totally wrong. Especially in Cameroon, there is the digital divide, but also the language divide, because internet is cut only in English-speaking regions. So for a lot of francophones didn't see where the problem was. I mean, you just need to cross the border to go to find internet connection. So once we put out the economic